good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Almost over 60 people joining already and still counting. We are very humbled and excited to talk to you all today. It is going to be my absolutely impossible task to give everybody a chance to speak, but at least we will try our best to stir the discussion after each of these topics that you see on your screen. So today we will divide our webinar into 3 parts. We will first start with addressing some of the risks and opportunities of AI for the democracies. And introduce you to the Democratic Commons research program. This will be done by our great colleague David Maas, who is a Chief AI Officer at Make.org. He has a wealth of research in this field, including the enhancing language models used in automatic speech recognition through neural networks, in discriminative learning, in automatic classification, and more broadly in data science. Then we will jump into discussion. After that, we will continue with the topic number 2, how to define the democratic principles AI should abide by. And this will be helped by a fantastic researcher, Théophile Pénigaud. He works with Tsevipov and Sciences Po. His recent work explores AI-enabled democratic participation, deliberation, and representation, including biases and the problem of alignment. His recent research focuses on democratic theory and the political philosophy of AI, which is very much needed in today's discussions that are dominated with technocratic narrative. We will then have a short discussion after that intervention, and then for the final part, we will look at how can the European legal frameworks protect our democracies with our dear colleague Francesca Fanucci, Senior Legal Advisor at ECNL, who is leading our work on protection and promotion of fundamental rights, civic space, and the intersection of democracy and technology. And then we will have some more discussion at the end with some promises of follow-up and wrap-up, because this topic really deserves more than just a 1.5-hour webinar. So we do invite you to stay engaged, share with us in the chat, where are you listening us from, how would you like to be engaged in this topic, and particularly in some of the follow-up ideas that we will mention at the end. Without further ado, I will give the floor to our first speaker so that we can start immediately, directly diving into the key part of our conversation today. David Maas, please go ahead and take the floor.
Thank you, Vanja. Hello, everyone. I'm David Maas. I'm the Chief AI Officer at Make.org. So I manage everything related to AI on our platform. And I'm very pleased to present you today our research program called the Democratic Commons, which aim to create an AI that is safe for democracy. And by doing so, trying to address the risk and opportunities of AI for democracy. So in order for you to understand this program, you need to understand where it came from. Next slide, please. And in fact, when ChatGPT entered the world in 2022, our first reaction was a reaction of fear, because we have seen all the threats that AI can pose to democracy. Those threats were potential at the time. They are actual now. We live in that world where AI is used to spread disinformation online, to create political deepfake. We have seen them in Slovakia and in the US, to send very personalized campaign message. It's basically Cambridge Analytica on steroids, and it's happening right now. And all of this is used to manipulate the election in Europe and throughout the world. We have seen one election in Europe canceled because of this. And now we have armies of trolls powered by AI that are active everywhere on the social networks and trying to disturb our democracy. So in order to manage this threat, we promoted a program called the Democratic Shield, and it's now part of the Commissioner von der Leyen program to try to protect our election from the use of AI. But we can not only play in defense, and when we have seen AI coming, generative AI coming to the world, we have seen also a lot of opportunities for democracy, because we think that we should not only protect democracy, but we should also reinforce it and strengthen it. And AI provide wonderful opportunities for that. And we see four of them, which I like to call superpowers for citizens bring by AI. And these are the four superpowers that we are focusing on in this program. The first one is the ability to summarize political debates. Every debate now that we are facing are complex. The ecological crisis is complex. War is complex. AI is complex. The economy is complex. And it was hard before for citizens to grasp all the complexity of debates. Now, thanks to AI, you can put all the relevant documents into a database and ask AI to summarize them for you. According to your own questions and in a language that you can understand. So suddenly we can have better informed citizens. And that's the first superpower. Once we have better informed citizens, they may want to contribute to the debate. And contributing might also be a challenge because we are not equal when it comes to expressing our own ideas. And now we can use AI to help people provide better contribution, express their idea better, and so communicate them better. And by this, we can increase the quality of a political debate and so reinforce democracy and make it also more resistant to disinformation and manipulation. And of course, once we have informed citizens that want to contribute, we want them to discuss together, to deliberate. We love deliberation, we love citizen assembly, but usually if you want a good deliberation, you need a human moderator. But now that we have conversational AI, we can imagine to use AI to facilitate debates and maybe to scale the deliberation online to have this wonderful experience of deliberation to be more accessible for everyone. And finally, thanks to AI, we have a translation for free, basically. So suddenly the dream of having transnational debates can be real. It's very important for Europe, of course, because we have 24 languages in 27 countries, but we have also a lot of debates that need to happen worldwide, and we can use AI to do so. And the core of the democratic program is to use this power and to provide platforms that try to use AI to reinforce democracy. But, and there is a big but, AI is not perfect. And one question we ask in this research program is, if we are using AI to reinforce democracy, we know that AI is not perfect. AI has a lot of bias. Won't this bias ruin the whole project? So we have to be very careful of the limitation of AI when we use it to reinforce democracy. And there are four specific bias that we are looking for. One is the demographic bias. That's the first one that came to mind. It's discrimination based on gender, on ethnicity, or on social class. And this is already well studied in the literature. But there are other biases that are more specific to democracy. There is information bias. If AI hallucinates, the information provided is not reliable, you cannot have a good sound debate based on this information. You have opinion bias. We all wish that AI is neutral and does not take a position in the debate, but in fact, it is proven that some AI lean toward the left or the right. And there is also a bias that is important for us, is a pluralism bias. Is the idea that AI should take into account all the opinion and not only the main one or the one that are most present in their training set. And in order for you to understand this bias, just imagine that you want to summarize the debate on Chinese politics. If you ask DeepSeek, you might not have a very objective summary. And same-wise, if you want to have a debate on US politics, I'm not sure that asking Grok is the AI from Musk is the best way to have a neutral information. And this is obvious for some AI that are created by industrials of our country that have an agenda, but it's also true for AI that try to be neutral and maybe sometimes fails to be neutral. So we need to be able to evaluate this bias in order to trust AI for democracy. Next slide. So that's why we started this program. This program is called the Democratic Commons because we try to create a common good that everyone can use. And in order to build this common, we created a coalition, very large, as you can see on the bottom. And we especially based on research partners that will provide most of the commons. The first one are democratic principles for AI. How should AI be AI? What is the good behavior for an AI in democracy? And Théophile will speak just after me at length on this. And so for this part, we partner with Sciences Po. So we provide all the knowledge about political science and philosophy that we need to create those principles. Then we need to evaluate the democratic bias of the LLMs and try to mitigate them. And that's why we partner with Sorbonne University and with AI experts there. I will present some of their results just after. And of course, once we know how to mitigate the bias, we can produce open source LLM that are safer for democracy, and that's the third command. And finally, at make.org, we create a participatory platform, and we'll build open source participatory platform that use AI to reinforce democracy, and that provide data to a researcher. Yeah, next slide. So now I will present you for first result from this program because it's now 1 year old. So we have been working and we have some results to show. The first thing is on our site at make.org, we provide AI-powered platform. This is the first platform that we have created. It's called Panoramic AI, and it's platform based on the first superpower to provide access to information. And you see we have deployed it in multiple contexts. We have deployed in Germany for the election at the beginning of the year. We have deployed in France on a debate on nuclear energy, which is very sensitive, and it was very well received. And we have deployed at the European level for an event and many more with a committee of the region. And these are multilingual panoramics, but where you can ask questions in multiple languages and you get answers in your own language. And it's very useful at the European level. And all these platforms generate data that the researcher can use to answer their own question that I will present now. Next slide. One of the first questions that the researcher are asking is how to create an unbiased AI summary. And what is interesting is because they work with philosophers that provide principle, instead of trying to evaluate the summary as it's generated by the AI, the route that they are taking is, in fact, it's better to understand in order to evaluate if the summary is biased or not, you need to understand how the AI create the summary. So what they ask the AI is to create an opinion tree. So they take a debate, they try to isolate all the ideas in the debate, they cluster them into bigger and bigger ideas and create a summary at each step. So that's the nice circle that represents all these ideas and the different aggregation level on the left. And then they ask the AI to pick and choose the ideas and the summary they will use to build the global summary. And so you can visualize in red and green what is used by the AI to create the summary and what is not. And on that basis, you can try to see if the AI is discriminating certain idea or certain group. And that's will be the basis to evaluate the bias in the AI summary. It's very important because we want to have a summary that we can track. We need to understand how the AI build the summary, and we need to understand if it's biased or not. So we are making big progress on that region. That's the first result. Next. The second question, I said that with AI, we have translation for free. But the question is, are these translations neutral? Are they politically neutral? So the researchers at Sorbonne running an interesting experiment. They use a very multilingual setting, the European Parliament, where we have people speaking in multiple languages with different political groups and translation in multiple languages. And they ask the AI to translate the debates in multiple languages, and then they compare it to the official translation. And the question is the quality of a translation by AI better for certain political group or not? And what they found is actually there is a difference. And if you are from the central bloc, so from the EPP, the center right, or SND, the center left, you are likely to be better translated than the other political groups. So there is a discrimination in the quality of translation. And if your translation is not as good, maybe the debate is biased toward the central. So that's the first bias. And it said that it's important to actually look at this kind of issue where there might be a difference between political opinions. But actually, the effect they found is smaller than the difference between languages. So we also know that all the languages are not equal toward LLMs. Some languages are more represented by the others in the training set. And as a consequence, the languages that are less present in the training set are less are not translated well enough. And so you have also difference between languages and discrimination. That's another type of bias that we should be careful for when we try to create the ground for a non-biased political debate at the European stage. So some progress on this side too. And third, next slide. We have another team working on the use of AI to help you write better contributions, so on the writing assistance. And they started with a question is, does the word mean the same thing to everyone? And in particularly, do you have difference between political groups using the same word? So they use a metric called the dissimilarity, where they try to see if some words have different meaning for different political groups. And actually, they found some differences. So they worked on different topics, and I will take just one example. For example, it's the word santé in French, which means health. And first, this word appears in two contexts, both in the healthcare discussion about healthcare and also the discussion of society. So you see that there is already a polysemy there. And this word is not used in the same way by different political groups. In French, santé can refer to either the individual well-being, or it can refer to the collective system, healthcare system, to make sure that everyone stays in good health. And depending if you are rather leaning toward the responsibility of individual to be in good health or the responsibility of the healthcare system to make sure that everyone has access to a good healthcare, you won't use the word in the same context. So this proves that words are not used the same by different political groups. There is a link between your political opinion on the world, and it's very important because if we want AI to help you write contribution, and writing is choosing word, we have to make sure that we use word that is understood by everyone the same. And it will be very important also to measure the bias of the AI when it propose a formulation by looking if the word the AI suggests is politically connoted or not. So that's also an important milestone toward a non-biased writing assistant. So thank you. This was 3 examples of a result from the researcher, and what's coming next. Moderator will continue to deliver platforms using AI, and the next AI feature that we'll bring is the AI assistance to write your contribution coming soon. So more data coming to the researcher to help them study the bias of AI. Théophile represents the democratic principle, and we are still working on making them useful in practice for the AI practitioner. So we try to devise a set of questions that you can ask when we are creating or using AI for democracy to make sure that you are not running into an issue. And of course, we'll develop metrics to evaluate the bias and mitigation protocol to fix it. So stay tuned. The program is only 1 year old. We still have 1.5 years to go and a lot of interesting results to come. Thank you.
Actually, our last question on the role of AI was very much a good segue to the next presentation on how to define the democratic principles AI should abide by. So what do we want to see actually happen? Please, Théophile, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm really pleased to join this webinar and to take advantage of this opportunity actually to get some feedback on our ongoing work within the Democratic Commons program, which David has just outlined. So yes, perhaps the uniqueness of the Democratic Commons initiative consists in the fact that it starts from a set of democratic principles AI should abide by. And I think it's fair to admit that this is a distinctively French, Cartesian way of proceeding. Of course, it has its good and its bad, and I'll start with the upside. Democracy is what philosophers like to call an essentially contested concept, a concept for which it would be both wrong and self-defeating to fix a definition once and for all. But just because democracy is elusive doesn't mean we can do without certain notions from which to articulate our own judgments about it. Could you go to next slide, please? So yes, we were fortunate enough not to start from scratch. And we've come across this incredibly helpful project called Varieties of Democracy, which draws the lessons of basically 200 years of democratic practice and theory. A blessing. At the same time, we couldn't simply ratify that typology as it stands, both because it is too rich and because it is largely unrelated to the advent of AI, generative AI especially. So instead, we decided to zoom in on the deliberative component. So why deliberation? For two reasons. First, because LLMs are themselves made up of communicative processes, right? And today, they primarily mediate those very processes of information and communication. So they are, in a sense, Bernard, my supervisor, used to call them literary technologies. And they constitute a brand new kind of algorithmic intermediaries. Second, because democratic commons does not confine itself to the many ways AI might undermine democracy. We are also interested in the ways AI could enhance democracy. And deliberative democracy is an aspirational ideal, one that focuses on the quality of democratic processes rather than the mere accommodation of pre-existing preferences. So our principles clearly echo this aspiration for a high-quality deliberative process. Next slide. So in the end, we landed on 5 core principles: participation, deliberation, responsibility, pluralism, and agreement, disagreement. So I'd be happy to get back to the detail later, but next slide, we then broke down these principles into tentative indicators linked to 5 generic roles that AI can play in democratic context: so summarization, writing aid, facilitation, moderation, and translation. And next slide. So these indicators, together with the AI roles, are meant to apply across 13 use cases or democratic uses. And one promising aspect of the project is the very nice feedback loop between 3 components: data gathered from real participatory platforms, so make platform, a set of democratic requirements or norms, which I've just started introducing, and the study of democratic biases by both social sciences. So yes, perhaps cognitive biases will be highlighted at some point, and computer science. So ultimately, next slide, it is up to the Sorbonne and the Media Lab team, other teams, to translate these principles into concrete research questions and protocols for bias evaluation and mitigation. But I just want to say how impressive it was to see how skillfully the teams have already begun leveraging these principles in their evaluation of democratic biases. So I'll be happy to return to this point later. For now, let me turn to some possible drawbacks. Right? So next slide. Starting from principles doesn't come without challenges. And the first and rather obvious objection is that democratic norms are hotly contested. So the argument could even be turned against us. It could go like, in fact, you're introducing another bias, a bias in favor of your particular conception or understanding of democracy. And actually, it's a fair question to ask. Is it really the right time to label one AI over another on the pretense of superior democratic credentials. Judging by how people react to lessons about democracy handed down from on high, or lectures about what should or shouldn't be trusted, it might not seem like a very good idea. And I'm glad actually to tackle this objection, because I think my added value as a philosopher and democratic theorist is precisely to dispel or try to dispel some of the misunderstandings that surround this kind of principled approach. Democracy, I contend, is not a value. It is a process. As soon as you make democracy a value to be defended, it becomes one value among others. And it will soon be traded off against other values, because there are so many values worth defending. So this is why we speak of democratic principles. Principles are not weighted against others. They help us orient ourselves and better reflect on what we mean and want. And from this perspective, by the way, our principles are not at all Cartesian principles. No, they are Habermasian principles. So our goal, as I understand it, is not, at least not immediately, to label one AI as more democratic than another, but to enable anyone to follow up on the issues we'll be highlighting throughout this collective study. So, as far as I'm concerned, making AI safe for democracy means, first and foremost, enabling independent research to help us ask the right questions in light of democratic principles that compel our attention and speak to everyone, irrespective of the conception of democracy you or I personally favor. We don't sell a product, we provide a roadmap. And I must add that I see a significant connection between the environment in which research is conducted and the kind of outcomes it yields. From first-hand experience, I'm quite skeptical about private companies tackling the challenges that lie ahead of us as a society. So this is not a matter of intentions, it's rather a matter of, say, incentive structures, to make a long story short. What I've become increasingly convinced of is that we, as citizens, as associations, philosophers, legal scholars, social scientists, and policymakers, we cannot surrender the discourse about AI to engineers and researchers working in private companies. So that was the first challenge. A second obvious challenge is interdisciplinarity, and I'll be short. Our framework, from principles to indicators to standards to metrics, has worked up to a point. But let's be honest, for now, what we really need is to work the other way around, from computer science to social science and philosophy, in order to tackle more fine-grained normative concerns. And this is my agenda for the coming month. Thank you for your attention.
We will move on with the last presentation, following up this interesting discussion and the one that is going on in the chat. Can the European legal framework protect our democracies? Francesca, please take the floor.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. It's always a challenge to be the last speaker in a webinar, especially when you have to talk about legal frameworks, and even more when the previous presentation had been so thought-provoking. So please bear with me, the boring lawyer. And So we start with in Europe, we have, as you know, I mean, so far, two main legally binding frameworks addressing the design, the development, and the use of AI-driven tools in general. One, as you all know, the European Union AI Act, which is a regulation directly applicable to all 27 EU member states, which was adopted in 2024, and it's not entirely implemented yet. Now, its primary objective is to establish harmonized, homogenized rules within the internal market of the EU for the design and development and use of these AI systems. But to do so in a way that is consistent with the European Union founding values, which are listed in Article 2 of the Treaty of the EU. Now, these values include, sorry, Théophile, democracy, defined as value, as well as respect for human rights, freedoms, equality of the law, and the rule of law. But actually, you'll see later on that probably, we can coincide on certain things. Now, the other legally binding instrument, perhaps lesser known, but equally important, is the Council of Europe Framework Convention on AI and Human Rights, Rule of Law and Democracy, which is the first global treaty in this field and was open for signatures in September 2024, so shortly after the approval of the AI Act. Now, so far, the EU itself has signed the convention on behalf of 7 countries, because the convention does not clash with the AI Act provisions, as we will see. But then another 16 countries, both in Europe and outside Europe, have signed the convention. Of these countries, 5 are, as I said, non-European, and they are the US, Canada, Israel, Japan, and Uruguay. Now, this convention is open for signatures to all countries all over the world, although it's not entered into force yet because it's not been ratified by the required numbers. Now, unlike the EU AI Act, the Framework Convention focuses specifically on the protection of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, and does not specifically regulate the economic and market aspects of AI. Next slide, please. Now, how do these two legal instruments address the issue of protection of democracy? Starting from the EU AI Act, well, as you all know, the EU AI Act, first of all, adopts a risk-based approach, which means that it has different levels of obligations on providers and deployers of AI systems, depending on the level of risk identified for the AI system. And they are classified from minimum low to high, and there are even cases of unacceptable risks, which are explicitly prohibited. And prohibited systems, as you can see, include, among others, the manipulative or deceptive techniques that subvert or impair persons' autonomy, decision-making, or free choice. So in other words, those AI systems that contradict the core of the EU values and democracies. And democracy, as I said, is considered as one of the values on which the EU functioning is founded. Then the AI Act, when it identifies sort of the categories of high-risk AI systems, include, for instance, certain AI systems for so-called democratic processes. So it means that are those systems that are used to, for example, to influence the outcome of an election or of a referendum or the voting behavior of a natural person in the exercise of their vote. But the AI Act also includes a specific reference to general purpose AI models, and warns about those AI models that may pose systemic risks, including any actual or foreseeable negative effects on democratic processes, including, in this case, the civic discourse, so it broadens the concept, and electoral processes, and including through disinformation. So as you can see, democracy is defined as a value, but when the AI Act somehow, while it does not provide an overall definition, but when it goes to identify, it boils down to democratic processes. So we, conjunction with what Théophile said. Next, please. Now, the Council of Europe, on the contrary, I mean, more specifically addresses the potential impact that the AI could have on democracy, because it dedicates a specific article, Article 5, to the so-called integrity of democratic processes. Once again, when it comes to defining democracy, we go back to the concept of democratic processes. So, the Convention says that the states have an obligation to adopt new measures or maintain existing measures to seek to ensure that AI systems are not used to undermine the integrity, independence, and effectiveness of the democratic institutions and of the processes that they supervise. Now, in order to do so, the states have to seek to protect these democratic processes in the context of all activities of the life cycle of AI systems. And in particular, there are two elements that underline the adherence to the democratic process. So it's important for natural persons to maintain the agency of their actions, so the ability to freely form opinions, but also to maintain the influence on the outcome of the process. And this is represented, for example, by the right to have access and participation in public debate. Next, please. So, in its explanatory report, the Framework Convention clarifies further that the recently introduced applications of AI could actually pose numerous threats to democracy and human rights when they may serve as a tool for fragmenting the public sphere and in civic participation and trust in democracy. And some of the examples, non-exhaustive examples that they give is AI tools used for the dissemination of disinformation or misinformation. So, for example, via AI-generated content or manipulation of content. And obviously, this is something that could undermine access to information and the quality, the integrity of the information itself. At the same time, it also provides other examples like AI tools that somehow make prejudiced decisions about individuals. They give a classification of individuals or profile individuals in such a way that leads to their exclusion or misrepresentation or underrepresentation in the democratic processes, therefore leading up to discrimination. Next, please. So, when it comes to concretely assessing the risks to democracy, the states should look at risks that may happen in particular cases. So these are supposed to be some of the indicators for risks to democracy. So they should look at the impact that AI system may have, for example, first and foremost on the principle of separation of powers. So does the AI system somehow influence the checks and balances on the independence of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches? Then it has to look at the effective protection of human rights, because the report argues the respect of these rights, and particularly of civic rights such as freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association, is the cornerstone of a thriving democracy. You can't have one without the others. Then obviously you have to look at the existence of pluralistic and independent media. You have to look at the existence of effective and plural forms of meaningful and civil political participation, free and fair election, of course, but also respect for the rule of law. So indicators has to look at the existence of legal certainty and access to independent judiciary. If you can move on, please. When you compare the two instruments, the EU AI Act and the Framework Convention, you see that both instruments require the states to conduct impact assessments. Obviously, they are described in different ways. In the EU AI Act, they are mainly referred to the public sectors, but nevertheless, in both cases, there is an obligation to conduct impact assessments of these AI systems on human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And both types of impact assessments, regardless of the criteria that we may choose to implement them, have to be iteratively, sorry for my it's the tongue twister. So that means throughout the life cycle of the AI system, not only at the beginning, but also as the system is deployed and used and continuously revised. If you may move on. So finally, as a civil society advocate, not only a lawyer, what we recommend to the states, but also to the developers, the technical developers and the people that use these systems, that procure these systems, to develop strong frameworks for impact assessment.
Конкретных нет, если у тебя появились конкретные.
And sorry, there was an interference, a democratic interference. I mean, and obviously we need these strong frameworks. We need to ensure that they are performed throughout the AI life cycles. And last but not least, don't forget civil society, to include civil society in the performance of these impact assessments, because civil society has the rights holders are the people that are going to be ultimately affected. So one myth that we often try to debunk is that it's not just for academic, government, or software developments to work on these, but it has to be done democratically, in partnership, effective partnerships with civil society. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanja. Thank you so much, everyone, joining the discussion. I think it was very rich. Hopefully, lots of thought for the future. Feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions about what was discussed, also if you see an opportunity to collaborate, such as piloting a participation tool, we would really interested in supporting efforts to make sure that AI and other technologies are developed and deployed in an inclusive way and respective of fundamental rights. You may read ECNL's materials on the topic, a research on new dimensions for public participation, and also our blog on AI and public participation. The webinar was co-funded by the EU, so we are grateful if you could help us to complete this short survey with reference to the project code. And I give the floor to Claire from the make.org for the final remarks from their side. Thank you.
Actually, I will be the one doing it. Yeah, so for us, as I said, the Democratic Commons is still undergoing. So if you want to meet us or follow or dig deeper into the first year result of the program, we have a lot of upcoming events until the end of the year. We have an event in Paris on November 3rd. We'll be in Strasbourg for the World Forum for Democracy. Clary will be there and present the program November 7. And we'll have an event in Brussels with Fari, where we'll still talk about will AI to control of democracy. And it will be, of course, a presentation of the Democratic Commons, but not only, and you have a program under the link. And of course, if you want to follow the progress of the program, you can read our one-year progress, but better, you can register to our newsletter and receive all the progress reports. So do not hesitate to contact directly us or the address that you see there, commandemocratic@make.org, and you will have all the information you want about our nice project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye.